Classic WoW is overrated as hell, and it's still the best MMO ever made. Let's check this video out, guys.
The many classic Andes who will die on the hill that vanilla World of Warcraft is the greatest MMO ever made. But I am also one of the few that will admit that it is also overrated as hell in many regards. I know, those statements sound like they would cancel each other out, but they don't. They can coexist when a game's best parts are so insanely good that they overpower all the stuff people hype up even though they actually suck. And that's exactly how vanilla is. Classic players and classic YouTubers love talking up certain aspects of this game that are just bad, like objectively bad or mediocre at best. And some of those things are fundamental to what makes classic what it is. Sounds crazy.
I'm actually interested to hear what he has to say about these things, because I think he is right, but I want to hear his points on it, obviously. Only for Zoomers.
Right? And yet, I still think it's the best MMO ever made and easily my favorite multiplayer game of all time. And don't worry, in the end the takeaway is a very positive one, even though the video will sound very critical up until that point. So what the
I like how he has to give that warning. Guys, don't worry about it. I don't hate the game.
hell am I talking about here? Well, if you ever clicked on one of those countless YouTube videos titled something like "Why Classic World of Warcraft is so good," you already know exactly what they are going to say. Same points, same structure, barely any variation. And somehow, none of them ever bring up the parts that aren't actually that great. The favorite thing that everyone praises is the leveling experience. And sure, it is good if you're the kind of person who enjoys that style of slow burn progression. People like me and probably people like you. The world feels meaningful. The progression feels earned. You meet people, you do dungeons, you hit milestones, and the world feels alive.
I do think that for me at least, my favorite bit about Classic is the leveling, the previous farming, and then the first few raids, the progression raids. That's like peak Classic WoW, right? I also think that's why RuneScape was really great in many ways, because that embodied the same feeling so well of progression, like always progressing towards something, and it's so fun.
That's all real, but it only works if you enjoy a very slow, very repetitive gameplay loop. Which is fine, but then you hear people say classic leveling is hard, and that leveling in retail is so easy, and this is where I completely check out. Hardware.
People do have this weird fixation with saying that Classic WoW is a difficult game. I don't know why. I don't know where it started, but I mean, Classic isn't not a hard game. It's just an old school MMO, right? It's not many parts of the game is really difficult, honestly, in terms of like skill requirement, but that's fine. There does need to be a hard game for it to be fun.
Hard how?
It's grindy.
You can literally roll a warrior and follow this extremely advanced technique all the way to 60. Walk around, see a green or a yellow mob, kill it. Keep doing that until you hit 60. Congrats.
Yeah, like back in the day when Classic WoW came out, it was actually considered a quite casual MMO compared to, what was it back in the day, EverQuest, and I don't remember all the other, I don't know if it was Tibia, but there was a bunch of like MMOs back then that were way, like all the MMOs were way more grindy.
Your max level. You know what?
Ultima,
Don't even pick up any quests. Don't even loot the enemies. Do all of that with your gear from level 1. It is possible if you are committed enough. The few ways you will die are always going to be the same. You overpulled, you were too low level, or a quest spawned something unfair out of nowhere. That's it. Classic isn't complicated. It isn't mechanically demanding. It's long, it's tedious, it only asks for time, not for skill or any kind of knowledge. I read a
Did he just show his editing? Hold on.
Wait, asks for time, not for skill or any kind of knowledge.
What was that? Oh, sneak peeking into the video here, dude. What the heck?
Of knowledge. I read a story once about someone's mentally impaired brother who managed to reach 60 after almost 2 years of play. And that is great, because the game is accessible to more people.
Honestly, that's why a lot of content creators as well, myself included, has done all these like super weird custom hardcore versions of playing the game to make it harder, because the base game isn't that difficult when it comes to that stuff, right?
But it is very, very clear that Classic isn't difficult. It's just a massive time sink. That's the only barrier. No mechanics, no decision making, no kind of challenge, just time. Hard has nothing to do with classic. That's why loot mattered so much. It's not like +2 strength on your bracers suddenly lets you pull an extra mob. You're not unlocking any kind of new combat option, you're still fighting the same 2 mobs, and pulling a third gets you folded like a launcher. What the tiny upgrade does is make those 2 mobs die half a second faster sometimes. And because you're going to kill a lot of mobs, that half a second eventually adds up to something that actually feels meaningful. And this...
Okay, I will say though, getting a new weapon can like make you literally almost twice as powerful. Like getting new...
This is the pattern with gear in Classic. Since 90% of leveling combat is just raw stat checks, loot isn't exciting in any deeper way. It's literally just, I hit harder, I survive longer, or I need fewer water breaks. There's no...
But to be fair though, that does change a lot. Because it all adds up, all those small things does add up a lot, I think, right? What's up, Pailada?
No moment where an item opens up a new type of gameplay. There is no zone where you suddenly need nature resistance while leveling. So getting a random green with nature resistance feels like a preparation for something that's cool and that's coming up.
Yeah, there's
There's
a lot of
no
random
item
stuff.
with a weird active effect that changes how you fight a certain mob type. No utility gear, no interesting non-combat perks. Most leveling gear is basically, does this give me more primary stat and stamina? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, equip. That's the entire decision making process. And it feels good only because leveling is so slow that any small improvement has time to matter. It's not deep. It's not creatively designed. It's just consistent. And classic spacing is what tricks your brain into caring.
You're also investing, right? Like
you got me addicted to our right before your break. Welcome back.
Yo, I'm Ruda. Thank you for the 15 months. I mean, it's just like you want to feel invested in an MMO, and I feel like the best way to really feel invested in it is by having like a long journey on a character and slowly increasing your character's like just the setup for your character. Same thing with RuneScape. Like, is RuneScape a giga slow and grindy? Yeah, it is, but you're building up that connection with your account, right? And then I think that's what those old MMOs does really well.
Quests are the same story. You already know this. Most of them aren't interesting. The lore barely shows up in them. The gameplay never evolves, and everything you do feels like a remix of something you did 200 hours ago. Kill, collect, deliver. That's the loop. There's almost never a twist on that formula. Not even some...
Yeah, they went with the formula and worked. Slade Scott says, I dislike how there's no weapon identity in Classic WoW. Weapons are cool, sure, but it's just because the stat is higher. You don't care about a random level 15 green staff, you couldn't even name it. Depends on the green staff. I think there's a lot of very special weapons along the way that people that play WoW know, right? Like, I mean, obviously, like through the dungeons and through the quests, there's a lot of very iconic weapons that are like little milestones for your account. Obviously, like getting a random green drop is not the best unless it's a 4 strength, 4 stamina leather build, right? But yeah, I mean, there are weapons, and then there's blue items like Staff of Okermar, Raxor's Club. There's a lot of like different things that like really that is big.
Something like the Ring of Blood from TBC.
A lot of things in Classic feel like they just went with what stuck and it worked. Yeah, I mean, the Classic WoW formula is very simple, but they made it work really well. You know?
The structure breaks up the monotony a bit. Classic's quest design is repetitive to the point of muscle memory. Zero diversity, zero surprises.
Yeah.
Those are the problems with leveling. But what do people hype up after leveling? Of course.
I don't know if that's necessarily a big problem with it. Because I don't know, I feel like they nailed the leveling pretty well. I feel obviously there would be some things that they could improve upon, maybe some quests or some storylines or like some items along the way. But I feel like they did a quite good job with it. It doesn't have to be super complex for it to be interesting and fun. I think if the base gameplay feels good, that's not bad. But I do see his point. That I can see that. Yeah.
Of course, the endgame, and this is where the nostalgia goggles go full IMAX. Classic's endgame is the worst point of this game, yet people praise it like it's some masterpiece of long-term progression.
Hey, that's me! What the heck?
Point where you get to raid log is the saddest point in your classic journey.
I actually agree with him. No, I do agree with I do think once it dude, freaking clip of me. I do agree with him that like once you get to raid locking, it can become kind of a bit boring. It can. That's why a lot of people make alt, so they start doing PvP or other things, right? That's why I'm saying like, dude, the leveling and the progression and in the first few raids is like peak classic WoW, but after that it starts becoming a little bit like, damn, all right, maybe an alt, maybe something else, right? I don't know.
Talk about loot like it's essential, like you need it to push the content forward. But do you? Not really. With today's knowledge and the min-max culture baked into the community, you can clear almost everything with shockingly low gear. A group of semi-competent players in blues can kill Kel'Thuzad as long as a few well-geared people handle the bigger stat checks. And the
in classic WoW, dude, it is 10 tryhards carrying 30 noobs in most raids. And that's just the truth, dude. It's like a core group of like 10 people that are just carrying the big weight.
Earlier raids, Molten Core has been cleared by
what is
people
this full paladin, full mage raid? This is so funny.
In literally leveling greens. Some of them before they even hit 60. That tells you everything. Classics raids are cool because they don't invalidate each other. MC still gives upgrades when Nax is out. But the content itself is so easy that those upgrades matter only as much as you care about them. From a
As weird as it sounds, I think that's why a lot of people started going really crazy about hardcore WoW, because I think people searched for like a new kind of challenge within the game, because the game is solved, right? A lot of people searched for like some difficult new challenge within classic WoW, and then that became hardcore, right? And I also think that's why, myself included, people are like, oh, well, TBC hardcore is not going to be that interesting or whatever, right? But people are starting to get excited about it, and I think that's because a lot of people want to see a new challenge within the known game that they already know, right? So that's it, right? Thank you, LSD Unicorn, for the 61 months. How about a combat achievement for doing MC in all greens? I mean, that's like kind of self-achievements that you can do, like, which these guys doing a full druid raid or a full mage raid, all that stuff, right? I think TBC hardcore can be a lot of fun, but they need to make changes to the game. I don't really think there needs to be a lot of changes for TBC hardcore. Maybe the only thing that I would really look into if they were to do an actual TBC server, which I think is highly doubtful, would be some of the one-shot mechanics that some raids does have, right? Because there is some bosses that straight up just kill you, like Terran Gorefiend, right? Or there's also a boss, I think, is it Ascalor, I think, in Hyjal, that also has a one-shot mechanic. That's just like, you can't avoid it, right? And that's the only thing, right? But
pure gameplay standpoint, the vast majority of gear isn't something you need. It's just part of the vibe. So yeah, the endgame progression feels satisfying in a meta sense, but mechanically is very weak. The game doesn't.
The cubes on Magtheridon isn't like a guaranteed one shot. If you die on the cubes, it's because you failed the mechanic.
Ask much of you, and it never really requires the shiny loot people act like is life or death. Class identity is another major thing that people love to worship. And yes, it is cool. Paladins feel like paladins. Druids feel like druids. But then you look at how classes are actually represented once leveling is gone, sometimes even faster than that, and the whole fantasy collapses. Sure, paladins have divine shield, blessings, auras, all of that flavorful stuff. But in a raid, they're all wearing dresses and healing. Every single one. Same story with druids. Being a bear with a giant health pool and insane survivability is awesome during leveling. But once you hit endgame, back into the robes you go. And
not true. No, druids are really viable tanks. That's not true. Druids actually are very, very good in raids. They have the biggest like health pool out of all tanks. And I disagree with this, because I don't think I don't think every class should be able to do everything. You can still play a paladin in raid and do kind of mediocre damage, but you can do it. The reason why people don't do it is because people are very like meta driven, and they want to make sure that they have the best possible comp, because that's just how people play nowadays. But you can still like do everything with all the classes, but not every class will be viable and be the best at everything. And I think that's good, but I do think that every class should have something to bring to the table, right? It's more of a self-inflicted wound. Yeah, a bit. I'm realizing how much I miss some people here. Am I parasocial? I think we're all a little bit parasocial to some degree, Mordial. But it is cool seeing a lot of old heads in the chat and old names that has been watched. You know, it's cool, man.
And even if you somehow make it into a raid as the spec you actually liked,
Yeah.
leveling with, the identity you built gets deleted instantly anyway. For most people, warlocks go from debuff machines to press Shadow Bolt until your finger cramps.
A lot of the yes, they are very simple to play, but I mean that's just classic, right?
Shadow Priests go from dotting gods that never run out of mana because of spirit tap to sucking the GM for a raid spot. Retribution Paladins go from killing 30 mobs at a time without dying to not existing.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you come in. My name is Michael Stevens, and I'm just catching up on...
DPS.
Or am I? It might look like I'm...
Contributing to the DPS.
But what I'm actually doing right now is...
Playing a Retribution Paladin.
Don't you feel like a fool?
I mean, he's not wrong. Tooth says, I feel like that's just classic is more like saying that's just bad design, but I don't care. I don't know. I feel like if they were to do some sort of classic, I keep being a classic bus conversation, but if they were to change some core fundamentals, I think there's very minor changes you can do to certain classes to make them actually very viable without like turning them into a weird amalgamation of like retail and classic and giving them a bunch of custom stuff, right? It's like boomkins are viable. They just have mana problems, right? Maybe there's something you can fix with that. Like, same thing with Paladins. Paladins could maybe be a tank if they just got a taunt, right? Like, there's a lot of things that are, like, very minor that you could do if you want to go down that route, right? But I don't think Classic should be... Everything can be viable. You can play anything you want and be competitive in a way. You know? A new AQ40 spec... New AQ20 spec books for meme specs and you're golden... Yeah, I think there's very minor changes you can make and then make stuff a lot more viable. If you want to make enhancement viable, probably... Again, I don't know if it's a mana issue, maybe dual wielding, maybe... Shoot, something like that, right?
Rotations in Classic are so simple, you could bind your entire spec to a single key and play with your forehead. There are exceptions, but they are very, very rare. So class identity and class fantasy, it's a hard sell for me. I really imagine that being a master of fell destruction would be more exciting. Then there is the atmosphere, the vibe, that's the part nobody denies.
Okay.
Starting as a nobody, killing kobolds and ending up fighting the Scourge or Ragnaros or the Silithid feels great in concept.
Okay.
That journey is powerful, but no one ever mentions how shallow the storytelling actually is. Vanilla barely had any real lore delivery. Blizzard didn't start putting actually narrative effort into World of Warcraft until Wrath of the Lich King. And that's not just my take, every major lore YouTuber has said the same thing before. Everyone knows it. Vanilla has heart. It has...
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with this. I feel like there's a lot of lore and a lot of story to Vanilla, but it's just... There's no, like, big MSQ you can follow. Yes, that's true. But there's a lot of stories within the world that's really... I mean, he's literally showing Stalvin Mismantle on the screen right now, right? That's one of the greater stories in Vanilla. It's just a different kind of story. I feel like Vanilla is more about... You're like in a world, and there's a lot of like little side stories and side things that you're like kind of seeing along the way, and then it leads up to like some big stuff, obviously. But it's not like that permanent threat of like the Lich King. But I mean, you do have the story in the world with the war effort. Right? You have the war effort, like, where literally the whole server comes together to gather up resources to fight, like, a freaking old god that's contaminating Silithus. There is a lot of lore and a lot of stories. I don't really agree with that.
Style, it has nostalgia, but depth, not really, not for the lore side. It is very awesome when you actually stumble upon a quest like The Legend of Stalvan, or something like that, but those are exceptions. And there's more stuff I could get into, but you get the idea. Even with all these problems, we're still talking about the best MMO ever made. How? How is that?
I don't fully agree with the story bit, right? The player's story, each zone having their own thing instead of everything being tied to the big bad was way better. Not every quest needs to be a big story. Yeah, I do agree with that as well.
Possible. How does that make any sense? Simple. The things Classic does well, it does insanely well. So well that, despite everything wrong with it, millions of people still consider it number one. And
Didn't only Alliance get the quest such as Stalvan? They ran out of time when it came to the Horde quest. Yes, that's why the Horde quests are a lot more simple in many ways, and Alliance has a lot of like crazy long storylines, like the Defiance Brotherhood. And like, dude, saying that there's no story, I feel it's cooked. Okay, I will say, I do agree, the Horde side has a lot less interesting, cool stories in terms of like lore than Alliance. But Alliance, dude, there's the whole quest when you're human leads up to the Defiance Brotherhood and like tackling, you know, like freaking, like that's sick as heck.
this isn't just nostalgia talking. I didn't play vanilla. I started playing WoW in Cataclysm, and I really started playing WoW around the end of Mists of Pandaria.
Okay.
So I have zero childhood memories tied to vanilla. But I can still recognize what makes it special. And I'm not going to go into the whole why Classic is great here. You already got a billion videos about that you can watch from other people. What I want to point out is the potential. Classic has so
Welcome
many
back
flaws
to
that
WoW. Excited to see you revisit TBC eventually.
Yeah, it'll be fun, dude. Thank you, Uch. Thank you.
if you just fix them in a way that stays true to the game's identity,
Okay.
the result would be something insane. Something on a whole different level.
Like?
Most games that people beg to be remastered or expanded are already very good and polished and don't have big structural issues. Classic is the opposite. It's a huge masterpiece held together by duct tape. That's why the idea of a good Classic Plus is insane.
I do agree with a lot of his overall like thoughts and ideas, and I also do think that's why everybody has this grandiose like thought and like hope for a Classic Plus one day, because there's so much you can expand upon that would stay true to it.
The ceiling is sky high because the foundation is incredible, but the cracks are obvious as well. Fix the cracks without ruining the base, and you're not just making the game better, you are making something beyond legendary.
I agree. Yeah.
And yeah, I know a lot of these issues are part of what gives vanilla its identity, but that doesn't mean they cannot be fixed in a way that still feels true to vanilla. Take
I agree. Classic is good, but the community is absolute bonkers insane. I think a lot of these classic MMO communities are very tribalistic with a lot of things, and that's not just classic, it's just how it is, I think, because people are so passionate about it.
the lore, for example. I'm not asking for retail style storytelling. Absolutely not. No cutscene marathons, no Champion of Azeroth speeches every 5 minutes, and definitely none of that modern vibe that feels like Marvel Kids with orcs.
And
What I'm proposing is something much closer to something like Dark Souls. That sounds weird at first, but it lines up surprisingly well with vanilla. Let me explain.
Okay.
Dark Souls has phenomenal world building, especially the first game, yet it barely talks to you directly in any way. Very few cutscenes, barely any dialogue, no big exposition dumps, nothing. You
Dark Souls is such... I freaking loved it. I haven't played this game in so long, man. I love Dark Souls. I played it in 2018.
start as a nobody who eventually does something huge, but to understand the world,
I want to
you
replay
have
it
to
for
do
sure.
the work. You have to pay attention to item description, the environment, enemy design, enemy placement, small pieces of dialogue, a lot of stuff.
That's one of my favorite ways of storytelling, man. Like just environmental stuff and things you have to like kind of... It's like a bunch of puzzle pieces you gotta put together. I love that.
Gwyn is the final boss, but the lore isn't Gwyn's lore. It's an entire world, and you're just part of it, and Gwyn is also just a part of it.
I hate when they do that. What did you put in? What was that? Show me.
You're just part of it, and Gwyn is also just...
Oh, also. Okay, it was just a fix. It was a moose. Snapefield says they should do what they did with Scarlet Enclave Raid on a bigger scale, with actively balancing classes until they're all similar strength, new quest, new PvP system, more items in the game for different content. I don't think all the classes should have similar strength. I think I like the idea that like each class brings a different thing to the table, but I do definitely agree with you that like, I wouldn't say fixing, but like slight tweaks to certain classes and certain specs could definitely be welcomed if it stays true to that spec what it is originally, and then also build on the stuff there is in the game already, dude. Like build on the things that like make sense within the classic world. Maybe take some of the ideas that was originally planned for vanilla and then like expand upon those, right? There's a lot of areas and zones that is like kind of teased in vanilla, but you never actually get to go through, right? Did you ever do Scarlet Enclave? You should totally go back and experience it if you didn't. I actually never did it because I was doing a bunch of other things at the time, but yeah, I was a bit burned out on Salt by that point, personally.
A part of it. Classic works the same way. It just never fully commits to it. There are cool bits of lore hidden in Classic, but the game gives you so little that almost nobody bothers digging. I mentioned Jedi Warlock before. His channel basically proves that there is incredible stuff hidden under the surface. You should really go and watch his videos, they are great. But it shouldn't require a lore YouTuber to shine a flashlight on it. What?
I can see his point. I'm sorry to beat this guy, but no more RuneScape. I'm taking a little break from like actually streaming RuneScape at the moment, but I'm still trying to keep up to date with my account, so one day I can like do some more content in that game as well, yeah.
Classic needs isn't retail cinematic storytelling, it needs more stuff to discover, it needs more of its world to just exist.
Honestly, I love the stuff with...
Good morning, Guzu.
They did in Sod with like the mysterious... What are they called? Mysterious agents and like all those... Like that kind of stuff I think is so cool for Classic. Like some little storylines and little like mysterious lore and shit. Like that I love that stuff. Frontline, thank you for the 26 months.
Let the world explain itself through details. Add more in-game books. Add more quests with a few lines of text that actually say something interesting. Add more environmental storytelling.
They never amounted to anything?
Honestly,
I didn't know that, yeah.
The easiest win, item descriptions. Dark Souls uses them all over the place.
Yep.
And World of Warcraft already did this occasionally in vanilla and actually in every expansion since. There's always a few items with lore bits. So if I kill a demon, for example, and it drops a demonic piece of loot, like, I don't know, a hoof from a fellhound, put 1 or 2 sentences in the tooltip about the Burning Legion or about demons in general.
Yeah.
So if I kill a lot of different demons, let their item drops slowly piece together a fragment of lore that, if I want to, can help me understand what is the entire deal with the Burning Legion, even if I am new to Warcraft. And if I don't care, cool, I can just vendor the item and move on. There is no downside. You know what? Make the lore description toggable so you don't even have to see it if you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, this would be cool. I do agree with that, but I definitely think there's a lot more pressing matters that you would try to work on instead of that. But yeah, it would be cool. Yeah.
That's how you keep the classic vibe while making the world feel deeper. Let the lore exist for the people who want to uncover it without forcing it on everyone like retail does. And for lore lovers like me, goddamn, the entire world would become a totally new place. Every mob could be a new discovery, a new story. For class identity, the fixes don't even need to be that dramatic. Just buff the meme specs in a way that still feels like classic. Give Frost mages something else to press that isn't just Frostbolt maybe.
The problem with that is that if you just... It doesn't just change raids, it also changes PvP. And then like you gotta make sure it makes sense for that too, because let's get Frost mages like a new ability. And then Frost Mage and mages are just one of the most broken classes in PvP. If you give them one thing to like be more special in raids, they're suddenly just a demonic class in world PvP, right? So it's very difficult to balance that, right? Because it's hard. But I do agree that you definitely should... There are some minor tweaks that you can do to certain classes to make them more interesting in terms of PvE content too.
Warlocks and Shadow Priests actually use their dots without getting punished for it.
Yeah, let's buff Shadow Priest in raids. they're not gonna be... okay, yeah, they're gonna be freaking demonic beasts as well. You know, that's why it's so difficult. But I do think it's possible to be done in some way. I'm not a freaking class designer, I don't know, but still.
Help Shadow Priests stop evaporating their mana bar in 10 seconds. Tiny changes, tasteful changes, nothing that breaks the vibe of the game.
I can agree with that though, yeah. They've shown that they're able to buff damage in PvE without affecting PvP though. That's true, Moose.
For loot, it should stay as it is and just become a bit more diverse at times. The current items don't need to be replaced or adjusted. They just need more partners.
Oh gosh.
Imagine a new Classic Plus zone where there is an area where the air is full of toxic spores that constantly deal nature damage. You can either grind out some long-term immunity method, or you can grab nature resistance gear that lets you actually quest there without chain-chugging protection potions.
I do think resistance stuff is kind of interesting in that way. Like having resistance gear be kind of useful. It was a little bit frustrating when it came to Molten Core that you had to farm like freaking so much resist gear just to raid, but yeah.
That's just one idea, but the point is, make gear occasionally matter in a different way than +3 strength means enemy dies one hit faster.
Yeah, I can see his point.
Give it situational purpose. Give the world more types of friction. And yes, some
Welcome
of
back to Azeroth.
Yo, Per2, thank you for the 3 months.
Vanilla's overrated parts should stay overrated. Leveling in Classic isn't hard. It never was hard. Anyone claiming otherwise is coping, but that's alright.
True.
It's supposed to be a break from real life responsibilities, not a mechanical challenge. No one wants that from Classic. Retail leveling isn't bad because it's easy. It's bad because it has no meaning. Classic's leveling means something because the world pushes back, because the pacing grounds you, because the journey has weight, and because of the people around you and the connections you make.
That's more of an RPG. That's just how it is. Classic WoW is a lot more of an RPG than the retail is.
That's why Classic Plus has unmatched potential, genuinely unrivaled by any MMO ever made. Blizzard has a chance to build something incredible out of a game that already works, but only if they don't fuck it up and only if they actually understand what players want for once.
I really feel like the information of what players want are so out there though. With all there's so many people making videos about it and people like freaking Reddit and forums and content creators. And I think a lot of the sentiment for what people would want in a potential Classic Plus is quite shared amongst most people, right? Player voting, I mean, who knows? Maybe they are going to go down that route with like voting for things and stuff like that. That would be interesting to see, because I do think a lot of the general consensus is the same across the board.
They are very late to the party already. Fine, just don't screw it up, because if they ruin this, it will be the single biggest case of wasted potential the multiplayer genre has ever gonna see.
Very true. I think a Classic Plus, if done correct, would be the most insane thing. But can they do it correct? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with OSRS. They are so freaking good at listening to the community. And that's why RuneScape has been so successful, because they're so good at listening to what the players want. And that's... If Blizzard... man, dude.
Anyway, if you made it all the way to the end, seriously, thank you. That stuff matters way more than people realize.
Yeah.
If you vibed with the
good video though.
Drop a like, maybe hit subscribe and tell me what you think in the comments down below.
Yeah, I'll subscribe,
I'm
dude.
always reading them. Till next time, peace.
No, that was a really great video. I think he brought up a lot of interesting points, a lot of like nuanced points about it as well, and a lot of different topics, I think, to talk about in regards to these like Classic WoW, Classic Plus type videos, because it was some new perspective on it, and I appreciate that a lot, actually. This is from a channel called Ivan the Space Biker, guys. Check him out. Give him a sub. Drop a little comment. Let him know what you think about it as well. Let me know what you think about it as well. And there it is, guys. Channel is overrated. Don't touch Classic with your dirty hands. I like how he pinned that comment. No, I think he brings up a lot of good points, and I think any person that like actually enjoys Classic can see that, because this does sound like a person that genuinely likes the game. Does he agree with everything and like glazes the whole game? No, but I think that's good to get some nuanced points on it too. The last questionnaire that Blizzard did was so tone deaf. The ones were asked for WoW tokens, pits, and flying. I think a lot of those questionnaires are like kind of testing the waters to see, because like regardless of what if you put out like a poll and you put like some absurd thing on it, if the majority of people is if the reception for that is, let's say, like 90% negative, they know like, oh, this is not at all, right? So like, yeah, it can be a bit tone deaf, but I guess they're kind of just testing the waters to see how much they can get away with and what people like, right? And what people want. So I do agree that it can be very tone deaf, but it's at least it's something, right? At this point, they should know. I do agree. They should definitely know what people want, but yeah, it's a big company, man. Blizzard is a big company that there's probably a lot of a lot of decisions that goes through a ton of people before they can actually change something, unfortunately, right?